right. Well, thanks again for joining us here at Stay Plugged In. Today's guest we have from St. Thomas University, located in Southern Florida. We've got the head coach for St. Thomas University, Jerry Sanchez, and we've got a coordinator for the same program, Sean Wilkins, who I believe he just was mentioning offline a little bit ago that he just got another job title. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll dive into a little bit deeper, but without further ado, let me start off with you, Jerry. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, who you are, and what got you to the position that you're in currently?
So I'm 25 years old, still currently attend college, wrapping up everything this May. I lead the program in St. Thomas University, started about a year and a half ago, really kicked off about a year ago. And what we really do is, aside from recruitment, we host a plethora of esports games from League of Legends, Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege. We want to bring in Valorant now, that's getting pretty hot.
Yes.
Just kind of jumping into everything that these kids want, seeing what works, what doesn't, what needs to come out as a matter of priority to really fit the needs of these kids coming out of high school, getting into college, and really just trying to make it work for them.
Awesome. Awesome. Sean, tell us a little bit about you. Again, same thing, how you ended up here with St. Thomas and what your position is.
Well, I came here to St. Thomas because I wanted to pursue computer science, and it was one of the very few schools I did get accepted to with a bad GPA. Though my GPA has sprung back because I tried really hard. How I got involved in esports because of my major being computer science, and the sort of person who advocated for it is the head of computer science, Dr. Sean Mondesir.
Nice.
He's my advisor, and I came in as a player. We realized that there were games that I was better at than others, and the game that I was playing was not exactly my best. But that I did very well in a sort of management role.
Got it.
And sort of recently, I've taken on the position of being a community manager, sort of just making sure everybody is, make sure everybody's lives are as smooth as possible.
Awesome. 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 Let me ask you this, Jerry, how long now has St. Thomas actually had an esports team? If you had to go back to its inception, about how long has that been?
So, okay, so when I look at the question, I look at having a team behind closed doors or having a team that actually competed. If we look at an institution that has a team, because you can have a team and you can play in your backyard or with your friends in a park, but if you're not going to tournaments or you're not going anywhere, posting anything on social media, you don't have a team, at least based on what the world's concerned.
Sure.
So when we started competing in TESPA and we started competing in C-Star League, I would have to say it was this last fall, actually this last August, we officially had an Overwatch team, we had a League of Legends team, and we had a CSGO team.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
How many players overall, just a rough guesstimate overall for all those platforms, total players, would you say you are in the St. Thomas?
So including substitutes and all that, we're looking at 30 through 32 players.
Wow. Wow, that's a pretty big roster. That's awesome. That's awesome. Is St. Thomas at a point yet where they're offering collegiate scholarships for esports players, or not quite yet?
Yes, we are at the point. We actually started our program with the idea of offering scholarships for students to come in. The students are, they're understanding that the program is starting. They're going to be helping out a lot. A lot of the students do double duty. Sean here started as a player, kind of moved into a coach position. And then I figured, hey, you'd be much better helping me in the back end, maybe with streaming, maybe with broadcasting, maybe even with recruiting. And a lot of the students kind of decide, you know what, coach, maybe I wanted to be a player, but not anymore. You know, I'm better at graphic design. Let me help you out. And we kind of have this whole team behind the students, helping them out, whatever they need, whether it's a data analyst, whether it's people posting things on social media, or just kind of helping them out in things related to esports.
Got it. Well, that's actually a perfect segue, because you just named a laundry list of different types of jobs that are surrounding this esports platform just within your organization. And obviously there's many, many more. So if you can talk a little bit about that from a student perspective. Obviously, most people think of esports and gaming as, hey, I'm in front of my computer, or I'm in front of my PlayStation, whatever it is, and I'm just gaming and that's it. But the reality is much different in respect to the different career paths and opportunities that open up for these students. If I could hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. A lot of the parents, when we have these Zoom meetings or Discord calls with the parents, their main focus that they tell me is, my son tells me he's going to get a scholarship for playing video games. What is he talking about? And, you can hear they have a little bit of bias, and by all means, they should. This is particularly a new field. You have to walk them through what these students are doing. Some of them are waking up early. They're taking jogs. Their nutrition is changing, or at least they're making the attempt to change. This is still new. They're getting used to this stuff. A lot of the students don't understand that you don't have to come in as a player and get a scholarship. You can come in, like I said, let's say you're really good at handling the camera. You can take really good photos. You're good at Photoshop. You come in for that, get $5,000, $4,000 extra off your tuition for a scholarship.
Wow.
You'll be working for esports. This is something you can put on your resume. Let's say you're getting a photography degree, or an example, computer science. You can help out as the IT for our own personal program. So these are things that you can add to your resume, signed with a letterhead from the director or from the head esports coaches as myself, or you can take into a job after you get your degree, or even for an internship. This is going to add a lot of value right now to students looking to go to school and at the same time not have to commit to that full-time internship in another location and kind of juggle between their midterms, finals, their homework, and this internship. So it's a lot of hard work.
Sure.
It's estimated, I forgot exactly the number, but in terms of just broadcasting alone,
Yeah.
over 500,000 jobs in the next 6 years.
Yeah.
So, and these numbers aren't just for esports. These numbers are just for sports in general. As
Right.
esports gets bigger, these other sports kind of lean into it.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I kind of like the situation that's created where the student gets to kind of try a couple of different things to kind of see what they like, whether it is graphic design or software development or broadcasting or whatever, what attracts them in that esports vein that ultimately could lead to a career path. That's kind of neat. Sean, let me ask you, you've kind of walked in those shoes, it sounds like, a little bit. You came in as a player, ended up coming out as a coach, and now you've got a couple of different titles on top of that, which I think is awesome. Again, the more you get exposed to, obviously the more doors that could potentially open up down the road for you as well. But tell me about your journey, your little pathway in terms of how you started off as a player and then kind of what it's branched out to, and what do you like about it?
Well, as I said, I sort of came in because of the major that I'm in. I came from a very tech-oriented high school. I one of the biggest tech programs in the country.
Wow.
It's sponsored by a bunch of things. I got lucky by going there because if I didn't, I likely wouldn't have even gotten into college with my GPA, even though I had a high SAT score. So when I came here and I got into the major that I wanted, and I heard that there was an esports program, something that I had been into for a while. I'd been watching League of Legends esports and been playing League of Legends for a long time. I knew I wanted to do something there. So I met with Jerry. One of the other players was in one of my classes. He sort of hooked me up and got me talking to Jerry, and we met up right outside one of my classes. And I came in as a player. I was actually part of one of the first original teams because I was one of the few players that we had actually at the school at the time. Mm-hmm. And there are games that I'm better at than League of Legends by far. But we sort of realized that playing, unless it was in those specific games, was not going to be my usefulness there. My usefulness sort of came out when I was able to get a hold of people that nobody else could, sort of going around figuring out who I needed to talk to, who I needed to go yell at, who I needed to do anything with, and sort of just act as somebody that you go to get something done. And now, as a community manager, we're capitalizing on that. So I'm streamlining everybody's questions and concerns and suggestions about the community around esports, the community as a school, how to do certain things, sort of also acting as HR, where you sort of just deal with disputes between players, disputes with staff, because you should never have to worry, both as a player and as a staff member, whether everybody else respects you. That should be a given.
Sure.
Because if they don't respect you, you're not going to do well.
Yep.
So my job is to sort of enforce that as much as I can, and try to build a community where everybody doesn't have to worry about everybody else.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, it sounds like, see, that's such a cool parallel, in my opinion, to just what your conventional or traditional sports look like. And what I mean by that is, for you, Jerry, a manager or a coach's job is literally not just coaching the team and sending them out there, but it's really try to play to what are their individual strengths? What do they bring to the table to make the entire room better? Quick point that I can point out, a quick topic that I can point out to that. There used to be a player, Rick Ankiel. He used to be with St. Louis Cardinals, I believe. He was a pitcher, phenomenal pitcher coming up. I mean, could throw the ball incredibly hard. Everyone saw that he was going to be a stud on the mound. Well, it turned out after a couple of years, he lost it. He lost being able to throw the ball over the plate, basically. He couldn't throw strikes anymore. So the manager took him out and said, you know what, you can still bring value to the team, even though your role may no longer be as a pitcher. He ended up playing in the outfield and hit and made it out as an all-star and was one of the better players on that team as an outfielder. So again, they just kind of reshaped where he started to where he ended up, because ultimately that's what helped out the team the most. Sounds like, Sean, you kind of follow that parallel. And then to your point, and with respect, man, that goes with everything, whether it's sports, outside of sports, etc. One of the ways I look at it is, there is no star player on a team if they don't have their teammates. And at the end of the day, egos have to stay aside. And you can't look at yourself as, hey, I'm here and everyone else is here. Absolutely. We're all in the same boat together. We're all trying to push in that direction of winning a championship or competing to the best of our ability. And at some point, no matter what the sport is, you hang it up, whether it's a controller, a bat, a football. At some point, the sport passes you by, but your character will always stay with you. So love that input there for you guys. So Jerry, let me ask you, from a coach's side and kind of scheduling the day-to-day activities for your organization, tell us a little bit about what that looks like. Meaning, as a student, if I were to go to St. Thomas and I'm playing esports, I'm sure there's more to it than just game day, right?
Yeah.
So behind the scenes, just a rough idea of what that environment may be like for a player.
Much like traditional sports, I actually want to hover a little bit over what you were discussing about character.
Please do.
Yeah, the main difference here, and this is what parents take it a little bit more difficult to understand. Psychology professor from Harvard, Mary Atkins, she was talking about disinhibition in online environments. What we have now with social media, what we have now with Facebook, you're more likely to get angry at a faster level and reveal information to other people through online. So here's what happens: you have this person, and they're very good team player, and they know how to talk, and they get good grades. But when they're in the game and the blood's boiling and they're heated, they can start cursing, they can start saying some things, and it's just in the game. You pull them out and they're a different person. That character is also part of their initial character. There's a combination in between, and it's really up to the coaching staff to look at that and work around that, because you're gonna have one or two players that unfortunately or fortunately, they raise the team's morale just as much as they diminish the team's morale. And they need to be what they call in poker tilt proof. They need to have the available emotions to make it through the game and focus, and maybe after the game kind of talk about what happened and what didn't work. Go back to the question you just asked me here. The scheduling, again, like most sports and universities, you run on a schedule. Your coach runs your schedule. Any student that thinks they're going to go to a university for football and thinks that the head coach will not run their schedule is out of their mind.
Right.
The head and football is really strict, especially with us. You're talking about waking up at 5 and you're doing your laps and whatever it is they do. Esports, I want to make it a little intense with the competitive players, but at the same time, if you want retention as an institution, you got to open it up. There's some players that they like esports, they like the competition, but they don't really like the, hey, you know what, coach, I'm not really trying to get a six pack. I'm not trying to, but what you tell me, the type of effort that you want me to put in this really helps me when I'm studying for my computer programming class. So this person is, they're knowledgeable enough to grab one aspect and then turn it into something else. And that's really what when we talk about character, what I want to see when the student's coming in. We're not really doing heavy weights. We're probably just jogging a little bit just to get the blood boiling, just
Sure.
making sure that the kids aren't sedentary. You're sitting down a lot. So this is a big misconception that people have when they think esports. They think it's a bunch of students or kids playing video games on really expensive computers. That's not necessarily true. There's a lot more behind there. They're looking at graphs. They're looking at data. They're learning about teamwork. They're learning about how to build up because let's face it, a lot of kids are not going to become professionals. A lot of kids, actually, more often than not, you won't. Even in the real, in sports like football or soccer, you're not. Correct. You're more likely to get a job in the background. And that's the reality of it. You would have to know people or just happen to be that person that you go, wow, you have that wow factor. It doesn't happen every day.
Right.
Especially now that all the professionals are kind of seated in professional play in esports. You're not really going to get them out of there. Maybe one or two sneak in, but that's about it. The schedules run through 8 o'clock in the morning. All the way till about 9. We usually structure their classes. I talk to the undergraduate dean, and we make sure that their classes are between 9:30 to 3 o'clock. Some classes might go a little later, but more often than not, we're practicing from 5 in the afternoon to 11. 30 minutes of what are our goals, pretty much what do we want to do for the week, and then 5 to 11, they're playing. Different teams play on different days, and whenever a student has free time, they're free to go in the room and practice on their own. But scheduled practice is about 2 practices per week per team. If they want more, they can just say, hey, coach, we feel like we got the time. We want another day. And I'll say, okay, let's do it.
Yep, no doubt. I know very similar to, as you mentioned, conventional sports. I played baseball, and I know the routine for me back in the day was you'd have to get up early in the morning, get in all of your jogging, your running, etc., go to breakfast, go to class, come back for regular practice with the entire team, which would take up a good portion of the afternoon, go back to class, eat dinner, and then at night, the pitchers would go and throw their bullpens, hitters would go and hit. So over the course of a day, the majority of your day is spent with intent to get better. But that's the goal, right? If you're on a competitive team and a competitive atmosphere, obviously you want to make sure that you put in the right time and structure it properly, to your point, as you said, moving around, not staying sedentary, nutrition comes into play, things of that nature, et cetera. So that's great. Talking about esports, where we are today, and in your dream world, where you would see it or would like to see it, say 5 years from now. I want you to think about that for a second. Sean, I'm going to start with you. Moving forward 5 years from today, where do you think the esports space will be by comparison to what it is today? I know if we talked about 5 years ago and the explosion and growth of it has been pretty astronomical. What do you think you see 5 years from now?
I think what we're seeing even right now with the current epidemic going on of the coronavirus, especially, esports is something that could easily take the place of a lot of mainstream sports, especially during crises and stuff like this. We see things like when F1 racing got postponed due to the virus, all of the major F1 drivers are starting to live stream themselves using the simulator practice that they use to practice for the actual thing.
Right.
And it's blowing up. They're holding hundreds of thousands of viewers for something that people would not usually think of. People have usually slagged off on esports, and that's sort of been the huge debate between traditional sports and esports is esports a sport? And I think as it continues to blow up and as we continue to see more support for it, and as it continues to help us come together, especially in times of need like the issue with the virus, I think it will become at least mainstream, potentially even overshadowing a lot of things. Because even right now, the World Championship for League of Legends, the only thing I believe that that overshadowed it in viewership last year was the FIFA World Cup. That is the only broadcast event, I believe, that actually outviewed it. It outviewed our Super Bowl by massive numbers.
Right.
So,
well, to that point, yeah, no doubt about it. I think to that point, the viewership model is there. I think the bigger hurdle in front of us is for people to readily understand it,
accept it, yeah,
to the point where they want to watch it and look forward to supporting it. I think that's where we are as a society in respects to where is esports, right? I think you got your gamers and your streamers that fully understand it, fully can watch it and do it. But you take any traditional sport, imagine how they first started in terms of when they went out to play. They probably thought the same thing. They went through the same curves, if you will, in respect to what is it that you're doing? You're throwing a football around and you're doing what? Back on year one of football. We're now 50, 60, 70 years later, everyone understands it. They love to watch it, and it's a great sport. I think esports will get there. It's certainly, like anything else, is going to take some time. But I think it's passion that drives this industry is not going anywhere anytime soon. If anything, it's just growing larger. And as you get that parental support, as more and more kids do it, I think we'll start to see a lot of those things come to fruition as well. But for you, Jerry, what do you think? 5 years out, if you could project out and look into your crystal ball, where will we be?
Well, it'll come in waves. The same like how it started in football, how it started in soccer. There's going to be times where people know what it is. You're going to meet people that don't know what it is. You're going to meet cities that are more engaged in esports than others. And right now, there's a label. There's a label on esports. There isn't a label on another sport. If you tell a parent, let's say you meet, or you tell someone, hey, I play esports, they're gonna have some bias. They're gonna have some prejudice unless they know about it.
Right.
If you tell someone the same thing about soccer or football, they're gonna be okay with it because, like you said, they're used to it. Esports is wonderful. It's allowed many students that never had the opportunity to go to universities because of the money, now the opportunity to go into higher education and get an education, which benefits not only the institution recruiting, but it benefits the jobs in that city because they need students that are geared for the technological world. There's no, if you're a university, you don't accept esports, you're just going to lose out on recruits and money. A lot of students focus and say, oh, wow, they have esports. I can go to school. And they might jump into esports thinking one thing, and they might come out the other side a photographer, or they might come out the other side an engineer.
That's
you
right.
don't know, but you just got to get them through the front door. Esports in here to 5 years, I'm really expecting to see a couple of esports bars, kind of like Flanagan's. I think the idea is great. I think it'll be really cool to see that stuff. It's a different scene. I would love to see more local championships with more local sponsors, not really big sponsors, and just kind of people at least trying to get their feet wet in terms of what esports is and make it more noticeable. Right now, it's kind of underground, and I like it being underground how it is for now. This is an industry that is billions of dollars. It's really easy to crumble it down like a Jenga.
Yeah, no doubt. But of course, I asked you the question, and you went right to the bars. More bars. I love it. No, just kidding. So, in all sincerity, guys, I really appreciate you having you both on. We're actually going to be running out of time here momentarily. But in my opinion, I think esports obviously is here to stay. I sincerely appreciate the time and efforts that you guys put into not just your school, but your community. Jerry, I know I've spoken with you over the last few months quite a bit. The passion you have shown me in this industry and your knowledge of it is really second to none. So I sincerely appreciate all the efforts you put forth. And I know no matter what happens with esports, you're going to be a big part of it. So thank you, Sean. I sincerely appreciate it as well. Congrats again for the new position. Look forward to seeing what and how St. Thomas grows with their esports and kind of goes from there. Would love to circle back with you guys down the road in a little bit just to kind of catch up a little bit more and see where things are going once this pandemic is over and we can all get outdoors a little bit more. But again, I sincerely appreciate all your words of wisdom and look forward to seeing you out there.
Absolutely, man. Thank you, and stay plugged in for having us.
You got it. Thanks, guys. And cut. All right. Awesome. Thank you guys both so much. Once we kind of get it into the editing and get it back out, I'll shoot you a copy. It'll also be posted on our website, right? So everyone else can kind of see it as well. So I'll certainly let you know so you can kind of get it out in your social media as well and kind of go from there. But I do sincerely appreciate it.
All right.